Well, I'm here by the beautiful La Luz trailhead for the Sandia Mountains here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with the Super Trooper, and the Supercharger is all hooked up and running right. There she is. Had it running good for about a month. Got all my check engine light stuff sorted out, and it runs really good most of the time. So here's a little bit of a quick review of how I like it and what I had to do to get this to work. So what do we have here? We have the Alpine Supercharger kit with the Eaton M62 Supercharger on an Isuzu Trooper 1998 with the 3.5 dual overhead cam V6. As far as I know, this unit only works with the dual overhead cam 3.5s, and maybe the really late model 3.2s I think may work. Picked it up used. You could see my two other videos I have on the Supercharger. I'll link those here. And it's pretty awesome. So how did this go, getting this hooked up? I began the job myself, taking the stock intake off the truck. Pretty common job, I guess. Nothing too hard to get that thing off. I began doing it, only working on weekends and stuff like that, and I kind of ran into a snag with the EGR pipe. So this is on the Supercharger unit here, but that same pipe going into the factory intake, see that bolt slightly rounded off there? Yeah, that was me. Didn't have the right wrench. I just had an adjustable wrench, and I know it's like a brass fitting into an aluminum piece. It shouldn't be that hard to on there that hard, but I just didn't have the right wrench, and I got on there and I really had my foot like against the wall, and I righty tighty lefty loosey, you know, it's opposite because it's going upwards, and made sure it was perfect, and I turned that sucker and I'm like, did it, and I checked that, boom, I rounded it off, you know. And I was rushing to try and get the job done because I wanted to go to Colorado, and I needed a crowfoot wrench, and at the time I didn't even know what a crowfoot wrench was. So I went all over Albuquerque, Harbor Freight, Home Depot, part stores, everywhere, and I couldn't find a crowfoot that was that size. I don't know, was it 21 or 19, 23 millimeter? I don't know, remember what it was, but could not find one anywhere. So I called my mechanic on like a Sunday and told him what was up. I say, you know, hey, I started this really obscure job putting a supercharger on my Trooper, and I ran into some issues. Would you mind helping me out with that? And, you know, graciously he said, yeah, I'll get it running, get it down here. So I bagged up everything, I labeled everything, and I got it hauled off over there. He got it going. It took about probably 3 weeks, maybe a month, because this EGR thing came back to bite once again. It's a pipe, you know, it runs into this block. The pipe actually, it doesn't go straight in. It's kind of like perpendicular. It's kind of like, you know, at an angle, because that's just the way the Isuzu intake was. And on that factory, not the factory block, the block that came for the Supercharger, the threads were trashed. So even if I tried doing this myself, I would have ran into that issue. So luckily Eric from Classic City Overland, with his other kit that he was doing for himself, he wasn't going to do EGR. So luckily we swapped blocks. I mailed him mine and he mailed me his, and this is it right here. That's his block. But we ran into yet another issue. My version of the Supercharger is like a newer version than what Eric had, or what I think Mark has here on YouTube. Maybe link his video here in the description, but I have like a newer version of this. So my block is different. The EGR piece that goes from my EGR block to my intake took a flared fitting with two little Allen bolts and the pipe coming out. That's the actual pipe that carries the gas from the EGR block up to the intake. It's a flare. And on this block, it's a threaded mount. And you know, and the mechanic, Billy from Rio Grande Automotive here in Albuquerque, great job, they do great work. He was like, yeah, I need the right parts to get this to work. I felt a little bad about it. I'm like, I'll figure this out. So I took that flared piece here and I brought it to this place called Action Hose here in Albuquerque. And got this little piece here that has the flared piece on that back. And then a very, very short flex tube goes into a 45 and it threads into this little block. And I actually had to get it shortened because it was too long originally, but I got it working. Billy over there, he got it running great, and everything worked. But next thing I had to do was kind of deal with some check engine lights that was on. You know, I got it back and he did what he said, I'll get it running. And that's how I got it back. So I still had some kinks to work out. First thing that happened when I got it back, about after 20 minutes of driving, this terrible knocking sound is coming. Bang, 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 bang. I don't think I have it on video. I may have it on video. If I have it, I'll play it in right here.
Squeal.
Yeah. So that's what it sounded like. It sounded terrible. And I thought I had something blown out in the supercharger. I was like, oh no, it's got a bearing bad, there's a rock in it, like there's a bolt that fell inside and it's clanking around. I was freaking out. What it was, it was the little EGR pipe. It just came back to bite me in the butt one last time. That little bolt there on the top, it was just hand tight. It was an exhaust leak right on the manifold, so tightened that up, went away. That was a huge relief, huge relief. So I still had a check engine light because the way I got it back, it was running the stock airbox, and the stock airbox, the inlet goes this way because, you know, the stock manifold is here, the intake manifold. Makes sense. But now it's up here. So I just had this wacky S curve with this flex tube that I bought, and was not ideal. It was, and Bill even said, you're gonna want to redo this. This is just temporary. Get it home. So I went to Yearwood Performance here in Albuquerque and I picked up some of this tubing. I got this enclosed cone filter, which actually pipes right into the snorkel, so you can hear the supercharger real good out of there. This 4-inch to 3-inch piece, I got 2 of those. This other adapter and a lot of hose clamps. This segment here is actually a piece of the original intake duct. This is the intake temperature sensor. I had to lengthen the wire, so I soldered and added more wiring to that. And here's the mass airflow sensor. So I just pieced it all together, got it running, and I still had a check engine light for mass airflow sensor poor performance. And I thought, oh no, I have some sort of an air leak. I'm pulling unmetered air from somewhere else, and I'm checking with carb cleaner and looking all over for it, and everything seemed okay. What I did was I just went and bought a new sensor. I cleared the codes, plugged that sucker in, and it cleared that up right away. It's awesome. So it runs really good. I was getting like oil all over the top of the plenum, and I'm like, crap, this thing's leaky. And this one here was only hand tight. So I torqued these down best I could. I actually want to replace all of these because they're a little, this one is really tough to get the 6mm Allen into. I need like vice grips almost to get that thing around. I got the evap stuff hooked up. That's what this is here. Vacuum lines goes to here. I did have a little blinking 4-wheel drive light because the little front diff, little actuator deal needs vacuum. And I'm looking all over this thing like, where the heck is the vacuum port? And I just teed off. I put a little T on the brake booster line, and this piece runs right down to the front diff. It's this guy. This vacuum line, there's a little butterfly valve thing on the factory intake. It's actually zip tied back here. You can't really see it, brown thing. No longer needed, and leaving that unplugged doesn't do a check engine light. So that's pretty nice, but yeah, that runs down to the front diff, vacuum, and cleared up the 4-wheel drive light. That was it. You know, here's my breather. Crankcase breather. I maybe want to move that. ECU. The computer for this thing, I really didn't need to do anything. The only thing I really needed to do was to replace this mass airflow sensor. The other one was really dirty and old and must have just been not performing well because it's 238,000 miles and it's over 20 years old. The issue it ran, when it had the check engine light, it ran really bad. Like it had no power. Between like 1,000 and like 2,200 RPM, if you're just in that low RPM range, it had nothing. It like had no power. It was weird, and I've read on the forums about that, and you know, it's Could be a lot of things, but it's definitely something with the computer pulling in information to give it its fuel mixture was just thrown off really bad. And it almost still happens. Like, it's happened twice with the new sensor where it just ran like garbage early in the morning, you know, and then it kind of warms up, it goes away, you know, the next day you start it and it's not doing it anymore. You know, maybe the O2 sensors need to be replaced because, like I said, they're very old. But yeah, that would probably take someone with a better scan tool and more time and reading to like look into what exactly is going on. But in the meantime, it's going pretty well. So the ECU, nothing to do as long as you're using the stock pulley that comes with this kit. I think it's a 4.5 inch pulley. It goes right up down there on the front of the motor. As long as you're using that guy, the amount of boost this thing does does not affect anything at all. So if you find one of these kits, there's really nothing you have to, it's really very simple. It's a bolt-on thing. Easy job. As long as you don't strip that EGR bolt. That thing was a pain, and I just honestly ran out of time, and I only had weekends to work on this thing. And you know what happens when you're working full time and you get a weekend. It's not like you have 2 full days of work. There was no way I was getting this done in time, and I just had to phone a friend, and he got it for me. So how does it drive? It drives amazing. It added, what I've read, I think about 50 horsepower, 60 pound-feet of torque. It really wakes up the Trooper. I'm running this huge bumper with a winch in it. This has got to be 250 pounds loaded up, more than factory. I'm running 33s. I have the roof rack, which that is the worst. It's a huge air drag. This thing is way overloaded from what it is stock. And with this supercharger, it still feels faster than it did stock. It's got way more power, and I can imagine if this thing was on factory tires and none of this other stuff, this would be a little rocket. It's not fast. This is not a fast truck, even with this. I'm pretty sure like a Accord Sport would whoop this thing at a red light. Whatever, it's not fast. But for what it is, this is an Isuzu Trooper with 33s and lift, all these goodies, and it has a phenomenal amount of power. It can keep up in traffic like a normal car. Finally, it can go up hills. I can go up a hill like at 55 to 75 miles an hour, like stay in whatever gear I'm in. I could just pull right up. It's great. I never could have thought that this thing would ever have this much power. So I would never go back. This is the way this thing was meant to be, and it's pretty phenomenal. If you ever find one, go for it. I really just lucked out getting it from Eric here. He did a great job. He was quick on shipping everything. He was really quick on shipping me that EGR block. And in the end, it wasn't that expensive. I probably, with all parts, everything I bought, and the labor to my mechanic, it was about $2,000. That's not terrible for a power adder. I mean, I've seen these things on eBay, and they're asking $2,800 for a used kit. I got mine running for less than that. So I'm super happy with it. This is actually a remanufactured motor. This isn't the original. Hopefully I could get a lot of life out of this motor, maybe another 100,000 miles from now. That'd be awesome. And actually, I didn't give them back my original motor when I bought this reman one. So I saved the OG one. So I plan on rebuilding that engine when this one dies. That's not something I have to worry about right now because this is running really good. And people say, why would you put that on a Trooper? Those transmissions are already so terrible. Like, that transmission's gonna blow up when you have that thing on it. Well, newsflash, it's a 5-speed, baby. And yeah, it's really great. Like, driving in the rain, floor it, grab second gear, and I spun the tires in second, and it was wet, so I guess that doesn't really count. But it's amazing. This thing just screams. I love it. Now, I haven't really gone off-road with it yet. I've engaged 4-wheel drive just to test that vacuum line, but I haven't really wheeled with it. But I know it's gonna be really good because that low-end power from like 1,000 to like 2,500, I just can feel that it's got a whole lot more. Like, I was in a parking lot and I was trying to pull up on a curb, both front wheels up a curb, and with a 5-speed and you're trying to you know, just slowly creep up the curb, you'd really have to play the clutch. And sometimes you could stall, you spin your tire out, and it'd be tough to like just get it up the curb without getting some momentum on it. And I just dropped it in first. I let out the clutch, and the thing, it just crawled right up. It just crawled right up. It had so much more like torque than it did before. And that was just idling. So I think this is gonna be a huge difference. You know, it's great on the highway. I drove with some camping gear on the roof a little while ago, and without the supercharger, I couldn't go 55. I could barely go 55. I couldn't go 70. I was screaming up these hills in fourth gear, you know, 4,000 RPM just to go 60. Like, it was just terrible. But now, put this thing on, it doesn't even know that that thing's up there. You know, anything I have loaded on there, it just goes. It just goes. So, you know, you drive a modern car these days, and then you drive your slow Isuzu, and you get really bummed out because, like, damn, this thing is slow. This thing sucks to drive. Not anymore. No longer. This thing is a great, great improvement, and I'm so glad that I did it. So, that's it. You know, if you guys have any other questions regarding this thing, well, someone's driving. That sounded pretty good. That's kind of like me. I pretend to be that guy when I drive by. No, but yeah, if any of you guys have any other questions about this kit, about how this thing runs, please let me know. I'm super happy to answer any questions you guys have. I love this thing. It's my Super Trooper. It's my baby. You know, last weekend I went through and I spray painted my trim. Kind of did a crappy job. You see, I got the masking tape, spray lines everywhere. It looks a lot better than that flaky old tan paint. Well, you guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been my Supercharger review and informational video. So if you guys haven't already, please consider subscribing and liking this video. I've been working on this Trooper for almost 10 years. It's mostly all on YouTube, so your support really helps, and I love making these videos, so please continue to watch them, and I'll keep making them. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Thanks. Bye-bye.